Firstly, a warm welcome from me to everyone joining our 2022 Track Maintenance Conference, either online or in person. I'd like to thank you all for taking time out of your busy week, and particularly this week, exceptionally busy. We need to do more work on our Insight forecasting tool to mitigate the effects of hot weather and other impacts next year on our conference planning. I hope you find at least one nugget from today you can take back to base. I'm delighted that we're running the event this year in a hybrid format. One of the pieces of feedback from the last 2 years, you won't be surprised to hear, is we've all missed this opportunity to meet in person and realise we are all three-dimensional beings. So hopefully all of us in Birmingham today can make the most of the opportunity to meet old friends, make new contacts during the networking sessions, and those online with the extended Q&A sessions. Hopefully that also gives you a chance to engage with speakers and colleagues throughout the day. I'd also like to thank the team at Network Rail and PWI who've put today's event together, because these things don't just happen by chance. So Liam Jackson, Kate Hatwell, Rich Gibson and Ian Coleman, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes and during today, plus all of our speakers and exhibitors. I know the amount of hard work that's gone in to make this conference a success. So this is an incredibly important opportunity to review the current and future landscape for track maintenance and risk management. I'm delighted, therefore, we're covering some of the underpinning principles of diversity, inclusion, competence and capability, as well as focusing on specific bow-tie risks and the opportunities to engineer more effective risk controls. I've decided to focus my opening remarks on the challenges facing track maintenance, not from my perspective, but from what some of you told me as I managed to get out of the bedroom and around the routes and delivery units over the course of the last 12, 18 months. So to start, let me be clear. All of you listening today, supported by your PUA teams, are, for me, the most important group of people in our company. You keep the track system functioning safely day to day and steward the asset through its life cycle between CapEx interventions. As we met last year, these are the maintenance challenge themes that emerged from our discussions. At the time, most routes had pressed the accelerator on removing unassisted red zone working. So the impact of this on the health of the asset and the health and well-being of all of you was, not surprisingly, foremost. This change highlighted and exacerbated issues linked to the historic performance of our train-borne inspection fleet. Rolling both these challenges together was creating more frequent, difficult discussions with ops teams about emergency access to repair faults, and several of you raised concerns about your authority, which was either being challenged or undermined by people with no engineering competence or accountability for safety of the line. You also raised opportunities for improvements to the way we do things, whether via standards revision, changes to competence frameworks, introduction of alternative maintenance techniques, or improvements to the systems you use to monitor and assure the condition of the track. I'm going to use today to give you a brief update on how some of the actions are progressing again to address your feedback. I've made sure that taking action to respond to what I heard is part of mine and my team's objectives for the remainder of CP6. So, train-borne inspection. To a subject which, again, being transparent, is my greatest frustration, because I know it's your greatest frustration. And because despite making a lot of effort by a lot of people, we're really not making much progress with improvements to the day-to-day delivery of that service at the moment. For the last 8 months, the IM fleet reliability has been reviewed at our track asset leadership group, the most senior track engineering forum the company runs. Regional track engineers plus the tech authority scrutinise AIS's recovery plan to correct the causes of train-borne inspection defects and non-compliance. However, despite this senior level of scrutiny, changes seem to still be painfully slow in delivering for you an improvement in today's service. I know I and my colleagues have more work to do to collaborate with AIS, but also to hold them to account where that's relevant. And I commit to you that that's top of my list and will remain so. I want to assure you that it remains my highest priority. Any information you can provide to me or your route and regional engineers to focus our minds further about the impact of the poor fleet performance on maintenance can only help work to accelerate these changes. We've also got future challenges with data delivery, or further challenges with data delivery, which have emerged more recently on my radar. And my team are working with AIS to put support in place for a more sustainable long-term plan for data analysis. I know you're waiting 2-3 weeks for track geometry data. UTU data is also feeling the pinch in terms of data delivery. We're also working hard to support AIS with approvals for the new measurement equipment on board the NMT. But again, this has been blighted by technical challenges and delays. Again, it's not off our radar. Lots of people are working hard in the background to try and make this, commission this equipment as soon as possible. One of the green shoots in this theme, however, is the Class 153 S&C inspection vehicle development sponsored by Southern and Eastern regions, and you'll hear more about this later this morning. Moving on to the impact of red zone working changes on inspection and maintenance. I'm pleased to report that, following much escalation, and albeit rather late in the day, from my point of view, changes introduced by the Safety Task Force programme are now subject to full risk assessment via the System Review Panel, chaired by Martin Frobisher, our Director of Technical Authority. This has led to a growing list of system-level hazards and actions that the programme and Technical Authority are now committed to resolving. So we will close out and address the open risks rather than leaving them hanging. The good news is that as a business, we're finally conducting the system-level impact assessment we needed, and we're now focused on delivering the actions that close any open risks so that you have the resources, access, tools, equipment, skills, knowledge and standards you need to continue maintaining track within the changed access regime. I know there's much catching up to do on this. Just chats on the way from the station have illustrated that, the difficulties in hot weather now, of doing simple things like putting out thermometers and retrieving thermometers from track. Unbelievably difficult, and yeah, another concern to add to my to-do list. On the subject of authority, I'm discussing plans with the regional track engineers and with my boss and my team to introduce more options for delegated authority, which may include TMEs in the scope of this. My view is, if you've demonstrated you hold the required level of competence, and we have a framework to do this now, and you have a robust level 1 assurance process in place, and we also have a framework developing to do this as well, why shouldn't a TME be able to make a broader set of decisions about risk management within an agreed scope? I want to restore authority to the TME role where that's relevant, and I think this is one approach that might support that ambition. But I very much welcome your thoughts on this, this concept as well, and any ways you can see to develop the ideas and improve what we're doing. Another bugbear for many of you is our competence framework and the difficulty navigating through prerequisites, training and recertification. Via our track capability development group, we have begun the process to simplify our structure for occupational competencies. You can see them mapped out on the left of screen there, not straightforward. For example, by mapping the hierarchy and reviewing and updating the required medical levels for a number of key competencies, which are listed on the right, we've making those more inclusive and more accessible to the teams and the staff that need to be able to hold those competencies without importing any additional risk to those conducting the task or the asset. Our priority in the next 18 months is to complete this work and incorporate and review all of our rail welding competencies as well, because I think if we map those, it'd be an even more complex picture. Touching on technology, you told me that management of rail suspects is a challenge. Many areas have tried but not successfully implemented our NAMO process, so we send those out to thousands of suspects repeatedly with no real benefit. Hardly in line with our boots off ballast ambition. So my team are focused on delivering improvements to the ultrasonic testing walking sticks for suspect verification, including engaging with unions to progress the introduction of B-scan technology, which we know will save millions of pounds a year and wasted track visits. Unfortunately, recent developments around industrial action have put this on hold, but we won't give up and we're ready to reboot those discussions at the earliest opportunity. Now on to a topic that for me could be a game changer in how we investigate and solve current and future maintenance challenges. And I'm really passionate about this model, the communities of practice, for building a strong network-wide capability in track engineering in the future. But what is a community of practice? It's a group of engineers who are the subject matter experts in their field, focused on developing others' expertise, first and foremost, around our organisation and potentially around the wider industry. They grow a network of expertise via coaching, sharing knowledge and leading the development of new technology, competencies and standards, proposing change to our ALG and our TLG meetings, and really challenging route and regional engineers and the technical authority to make improvement. The groups are empowered to make change and, if successful, will evolve and grow at a pace to suit every route and region. So today, I'm using this event to formally launch our track and S&C community of practice model. There are already a number of leading engineers covering the subjects you can see on the right, who are able to help address any queries you might have that you can't find answers to elsewhere. The names shown are the engineers who coordinate the COP meetings at the moment, and we have a SharePoint site which contains details of other engineers from around the network involved in each of these communities of practice, and further information about what those communities are working on. I'll make sure the link is circulated following today's event, and I encourage you to have a look. These groups are there to help and support everybody. I'll call out a couple for doing great work already. For example, a longitudinal bearer system community of practice led by Rich Gibson at the front, doing some fantastic work. You'll hear about some of it later, but they run open forums. I've listened into a couple of them, and it's really generating a lot of sort of self-help, problem-solving, people sharing their bespoke designs for these wheel timber systems and structures, and helping each other out with real, live, day-to-day issues. And our on-track machine community has also built a real momentum and is looking not only at some tactical issues, but the strategic issues around how we plan and deliver best value with our on-track machines. They've also supported me in responding to some ORR criticism about the way we use OTMs, and they've proactively put in place actions to address some of that feedback. So again, real momentum, and it shows what can be done once we get the group of the right people in the room committed to solving some of these problems. I pinched this graphic from Spotify. They've got a great video on communities of practice, actually, and how it works well for them. It summarises the core purpose of these communities, and we're heading for the top right. The idea is to create communities of people who are empowered to make change, but remain nicely aligned to Network Rail's business objectives. We've got a bit more work to do there in terms of that alignment piece, but as I say, the empowerment is coming along nicely, and I think there's great future for these groups. Finally, a slight change of direction, and this is one of my own. Here's a maintenance challenge that is right up there in terms of my priorities. The graph shows the number of derailments due to gauge spread between 2006 and 2020, courtesy of Dr. Mark Burstow, who's here today. Thank you, Mark. And you can see it's evident these are occurring with increasing frequency, as we know, with high-profile derailments in 2020 at Sheffield and Eastleigh. You won't be surprised to learn that recent derailments have resulted in new recommendations, which in turn have triggered a range of actions designed to improve our management of wide gauge. You'll hear more detail about our response to recent gauge spread derailments at the end of the conference. So in my view, we've saved the best till last, and I'm not going to steal those presenters' thunder now, because I won't get out of here alive. Our challenge is that all of these actions are reacting to incidents. This is where we need to maintain our sense of chronic unease. And again, I recommend you look that up on the internet if you've not heard of it already. There's some great videos from the oil and gas industry. What is it? It's about always being vigilant about the early signs of a more systemic issue developing. It's my contention we can get more value out of our assurance activity to get better at being our chronic unease and being vigilant, and start to address issues preventatively, or more issues preventatively. And our communities of practice play a role in highlighting these emerging trends and prioritising further improvements to our risk controls. So, thank you for listening. I look forward to your questions later and throughout the day, and for catching up with as many of you as I can in person. Thanks very much.